Chris Pratt makes a deal with God, why you want 5 marriages, a possible miracle attributed to the late Cardinal Pell, and my thoughts on season 5 of The Chosen. What's up, guys? I'm Father David Michael Moses. I'm a Catholic priest, and you know the drill. If you haven't subscribed, please make sure that you do so. And if you are subscribed, make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. So we are in the season of Lent, this time of prayer, fasting, almsgiving. Actually, kind of a funny story. The other day, we had our parish fish fry. So on Fridays, as Catholics, we can't eat meat. So we have these special nights where we fry fish for everybody in the community. They come. And that night, there's this really nice guy at the parish who always gives me homemade peanut brittle. And he gives it to me like in a paper sack. It's super good, and it's very, very thoughtful of him. Well, this past Friday, he brought it to me in a paper bag, but it was actually a to-go bag from Whataburger, which is a hamburger place here in town. So I didn't think that much of it because I knew it was peanut brittle inside. So I was walking around all the tables and saying hi to everybody and kind of working the room while I held my little paper bag of peanut brittle. And finally somebody goes, "Hey, Father, do you not like fish?" And I was like, "No, I love the fish. What's the problem?" And they goes, "Well, obviously you went and got a hamburger from Whataburger," and they pointed to the bag. And it's a Friday. We're not supposed to be eating meat. And I was like, no, guys, this is peanut brittle. And I was thinking, how many people in the room saw me with my bag of what looked like Whataburger and thought, man, Father's not even keeping the abstinence on Fridays during Lent. He's just going out and eating hamburgers. So from then on in the room, had to make it very, very clear. In fact, I actually turned the bag inside out so that no one saw the Whataburger logo anymore. But okay, all that to say, we're in the season of Lent, and part of Lent is prayer. And so Hallow is doing this special prayer challenge. And Hallow has gotten on board all these different celebrities. We talked about that a little bit before in the last episode with Gwen Stefani. And Chris Pratt, who's a huge actor, is also on their team now. And he posted a pretty interesting interview with him talking about making a deal with God as his son was going through kind of a difficult illness. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. I thought it'd be interesting to discuss it with you guys. Got some thoughts here.
You know, I was baptized Catholic, and we weren't a big church-going family. And I had a few different moments through the course of my life where I really felt called to God and gave my heart to Jesus. The most impactful moment was when my son was born. He was born early and had some health scares, and in that moment really made some deals with God. You know, and as you do when you're praying, and I felt like if you save my son, I will give you everything. I'll give you my life. I'll give you my platform. I won't be ashamed to talk to you, talk about you. And he did save my son, and I've been trying to make good on that promise ever since.
Beautiful. First of all, to say that, God doesn't want evil things to happen. God doesn't want people to be sick. That's not the way he created humanity originally for Adam and Eve. They were supposed to be free of any kind of sickness. But because of sin, the world has now been broken. And so God does allow sickness, but he never allows it if there can't be some greater good that could come from it, if we're willing to cooperate with it. So the fact that Chris's son got sick in itself is a bad thing, but if we're open to letting God use things, he can bring a great good out of them. So the fact that he took his son's illness and turned that into a moment of encounter with the Lord to say, Lord, this is a terrible situation. I want to change my life in some way. I want to use my platform differently is actually a really beautiful thing. And I think it's great that we have some celebrities who are using their platforms. Again, celebrities are not our models. Our models are always the saints. Ideally, Jesus Christ and the saints who reflect Jesus for us in different times. But it's a good thing that celebrities use their platforms to preach the kingdom. And I always tell people when I meet with them and stuff for spiritual direction, whether you lose a loved one, whether you have somebody sick in your family, whether you're going through a really difficult time, whatever it is, rest assured that bad event in itself, the enemy wants to use that to bring you further from God. And God wants to use that same thing to bring you closer to himself. And which one of those things happens is totally up to your response. And sadly, so many people, they encounter some kind of suffering, a sick child, and they just abandon the faith when they actually need it the most. And I think it's really beautiful that Chris actually took this as an opportunity to lean into it a little bit. I was talking with a lady just recently at an event I was speaking at, and her mom, they're from a pretty difficult country, let's say. It's a dangerous country. And her mom was actually murdered in her home by 4 men, was killed in a really horrible way. And she said it was just absolutely horrific, hearing about what had happened and hearing about the trial. And they ended up catching one of the guys, but it was just super, super sad because they just wanted to rob her mom. That was all it was. They took her life for that. And she also told me, she said, Father, when that happened, I decided at this point I can either get closer to God or further from God. And I decided to get closer to him. And she says, I now have 3 adult sons, and all of them are still faithful, practicing Catholics. And she actually had her youngest son recently say, Mom, if grandma hadn't been killed, I wonder if we would all be as faithful as we are. And so horrible, horrific thing that happened to her mother, but she sees very clearly over time what God does with it. And so, for Chris, difficult thing with his child, and yet God can do some really beautiful things. He said, God saved my son, and he meant medically speaking, health-wise, but I also kind of wonder if through this whole interaction, he saved him and his son spiritually as well. So hopefully we can see more of that. One other thought I had kind of listening to that too is, you can see in this and many other instances, the lengths to which a father will go to save his son. So you can only imagine how important something must be to a father for him to sacrifice his son. Maybe I can say that again. You see how important it is to a father. You see what a father will give to save his son. So imagine what a father must see here to sacrifice his son for something else. That ultimately, that is the mystery of the crucifixion. We're coming up on Holy Week in just a couple weeks here. That what the reality of that is God loved the Son so much. He loves his Son so, so much. God the Father loves his Son. And yet, he loved you so much. He was willing to sacrifice his Son for you. That's wild. Yeah, it's crazy to think the lengths to which a father would go to save his son. But it's even crazier to see why a father would sacrifice his son. That's what I'm worth. That's what you're worth. And you know what? I think I might have my Good Friday homily. Thank you guys for processing this with me. I appreciate that. Let's pop up to our next topic here. Saw this video, absolutely loved it. A huge part of my life as a parish priest is doing marriage preparation for couples and also doing weddings. And most of the people in my parishes are not celibate, they're not priests, they're married. So a big part of my life is helping to form married couples. And so this video really caught my eye when it popped up, and I think you also will find it quite interesting.
In your life, you will have 5 marriages. I hope they're all to the same person.
In your life, you will have 5 marriages. Sounds scandalous for a second. I hope they're all to the same person.
And I think about that quote every day, because what I take that as is like the marriage that I had with Heather before kids was fun. We went to Europe, we traveled around. I mean, Graham, you're in it right now. It's a fun marriage. It's great. The marriage with little kids is a totally different marriage. And so many couples don't make it through that marriage. It's just a different marriage. And if all you do is lament the marriage you used to have and say, the life I used to have that, it was so good. Now I've got this hard life with little kids. You're gonna always be miserable. And then the next marriage, when you have older kids, right, that are like teenagers, that's totally different. Again, and most people don't make it through the transitions, and they lose themselves in the process. And then the marriage, after the kids are out of the house, is real tough for people. And then when you're old, you have that marriage. And it's, again, a very different marriage.
Love that. Love that. What is marriage about fundamentally? What's the idea? Is it about finding somebody that you're compatible with, that you just enjoy being with? Is it even about finding somebody that you're on the same mission with, to do things with, to accomplish a goal with? Is it about finding just a companion for your activities? Those can all be aspects of marriage, and those are all good things, especially like the mission one. But I would say fundamentally what marriage is all about is faithfulness. It's about fidelity. It's about commitment. That's what marriage is. And commitment, one of my favorite definitions of commitment is doing what you said you would do when the feelings in which you said it have passed. Commitment is doing what you said you would do even when the feelings have passed. And marriage is like the ultimate representation of that. Yeah, there's gonna be all these different moments when you as a person change and they as a person change, but you know what? You promised. Good times and in bad. And the reason that's so significant is because marriage is a sign to us of God's love. The love of the man and the woman is an image of the love of God for humanity. And his love is one that is faithful. Because golly, humanity has changed so much in terms of what we struggle with and all the horrible ways in which we have failed. And yet God has been faithful to humanity through everything. And he's faithful to each one of us individually. So it's beautiful and necessary that marriage, as an image of who God is also faithful through everything. I've heard kind of a funny thing that marriage is very psychological. One person's psycho and the other one's logical, right? And it can feel like that sometimes. Sometimes people can feel like the other person is going crazy sometimes. And ultimately, the beauty of marriage, one, is the sacrifice, of you loving this other person no matter what, in all these different stages. But I also think it's good for people to recognize part of the beauty is that this other person is choosing you no matter what, through all your different stages of your life. That it is wild to be loved in that way. Like, I will love you no matter what you do or you say or how you act. I will love you no matter what until I die. And that being in a marriage is somebody saying that to you. It is extraordinary to be chosen in that way. I'm a celibate man, but I still have so much respect, and I can very clearly see the beauty of that in marriage. It's about faithfulness. And you're on that adventure together. There's going to be different stages, the kind of honeymoon phase, the having the baby phase. You're going to have the toddler phase and the teenager phase and the kids out of the house phase and the grandkids phase. And you're going to go through all that together. And you know that no matter what happens, the other person won't leave. Jordan Peterson talks about how the boundaries are set for marriage to say you can truly be you because I'll never leave. Like it's the boundaries that actually create a freedom to truly be you and to know that you are truly chosen. And it kind of harkens back to something I mentioned a couple videos ago, which is that they've done studies and they show that people who are happily married are 545% happier than people who are unhappily married or people who are not married. So it is a fork in the road that people who have great marriages, man, it shoots your life satisfaction up a ton. And people who don't have good marriages, it is very, very difficult. So choose well, but once you have chosen, you are all in. I want to talk about Cardinal Pell. We actually played a video of a debate he was in with Richard Dawkins. Maybe my editor can cut that in right now. Did you cut it in, or is it just awkwardly me staring at the screen?
Well, I think it's a bit funny to be trying to define nothing.
He did roast him pretty good on that question of nothingness. But he, if you know much about his story, really fascinating. He's an Australian cardinal, and he was falsely accused of a crime. And he did not commit that crime. There wasn't much evidence for it, but they somehow got it through. They got a guilty verdict, and he was put into solitary confinement, is my understanding. Solitary confinement for 13 months. A book came out about some of his prison journals that he was able to write during that time. But he was able to push through it, stay faithful, and eventually after the 13 months, he was sentenced to many, many more years. But after 13 months, a grand jury got together and unanimously acquitted him. Unanimously, they all said, like, this is bogus. And yeah, the stuff they accused him of, he wasn't even in that place at that time. It made no sense logistically. It was just really, really corrupt, the fact that they got that through. But he got out, and thankfully his reputation was cleared. But he did pass away a few years ago. And there's this family whose son, sadly, doesn't say the age in the article, but I'm assuming his little boy was drowning in their hot tub. and they seemed like they didn't get to him in time. And by the time they got to him, he had a really low pulse. He wasn't breathing. They went to the hospital. He didn't breathe for 52 minutes, which I can't even believe your body can survive from that. Apparently, he still had, like I said, he still had a little bit of a pulse, but he didn't breathe for 52 minutes. And the family was praying, and everybody was praying, and they were bringing relics to his body, and they asked for the intercession of a lot of different saints, and they asked for Cardinal Pell's intercession. This is interesting because you can privately ask for the intercession of someone you think was holy who has died. So there's a good friend of mine, his name Father Ryan Stallways. I was ordained with him, and sadly, after we got ordained, he got cancer again for the third time, and ended up passing away a couple of years ago. But he lived an extraordinary life, and he carried that cancer with an incredible joy, incredible faith, and right up to the end was such a good priest for God's people. They made a documentary about his life that is just absolutely amazing. It's called Love God's Will. It's worth checking out online. But I mention that because people have come to me and told me that there's been reports of people asking for his intercession, basically saying, God, through Father Ryan's intercession, Father Ryan, can you please play a part in having God do some kind of healing here? They've asked that, and people have told me that they thought that was the reason for the healings. And so even though we don't want to get ahead of the church, he's not publicly canonized. He hasn't even been declared a servant of God or anything like that. But so as a priest, I would never lead a service in his honor or something like that. But personally, people can ask for his intercession. You can do that on a private level, privately. And so it sounds like they did that for this young boy who hadn't breathed in 52 minutes. They asked for Cardinal Pell's intercession, and the boy woke up. And not just that, he's completely fine. No brain damage, no damage to his body, his lungs, anything like that. He is totally fine. The doctor's saying it's just an absolute miracle is what they think. So to be clear there, the church has not officially declared this a miracle. This is a story that this family has said, and certainly Cardinal Pell has not been declared a saint or anything like that. But it's significant because obviously for this family it's extremely meaningful, but also because part of the canonization process is to have 2 miracles attributed to the person's intercession. So canonization happens from the church, but the devotion to the person often kind of is a grassroots movement. It's the people who knew him. It's the devotions of the people in the local community. And a lot of times that bubbles up into officials in the church saying, hey, let's open a cause for canonization. Let's take a look and see what happens. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Regardless, it does show the beautiful, beautiful power of prayer, and good for us all to be praying together. Last, just quick thing for you guys. I went to the Chosen premiere. We've got a video about that. Us having some fun getting into the Chosen premiere. You can check that out here. But just some thoughts about those first 2 episodes. They're releasing season 5 in parts in theaters, and it's cool to see so much buzz around a show about Jesus and about the scriptures. Absolutely beautiful. The show itself, I think, is such a good thing in our society that we're bringing the quality and the power of the storytelling and the production of Hollywood to the most important story, which is the story of Jesus Christ. The set design for it was really extraordinary, what they were able to accomplish to really make some of these scenes just really, really come to life. The acting, obviously Jonathan Rumi and the disciples and everything, Peter, is just so well done. It is a little dialogue heavy, so it's focused on a lot of more extended conversations. That's kind of seems to be more of the style to kind of delve into some of those scenes. But 2 scenes I thought were kind of cool to highlight. There's a scene where Jesus is just out for a walk one night. Presumably he's just kind of trying to clear his mind and process these things as a man, obviously as God as well. And he sees this wedding feast, and he kind of hops into the party, and somebody pulls him into the dance, and he's dancing, and his hood falls off, and they all realize that he's Jesus. And it's kind of a beautiful moment of him entering into the celebration of humanity, and that kind of just the humanness of him there. And then once they all recognize him, he doesn't want to steal a show, so he kind of excused himself. But I thought that was kind of a beautiful scene that is possible. I think it's possible that something like that would happen. The thing I thought was interesting, obviously the center of this first couple episodes is the purifying of the temple, Jesus going into the temple area and flipping the tables of the money changers and saying, "Why have you turned my Father's house into a marketplace?" What I thought was kind of interesting is in the trailer of the movie, that's a central kind of scene, and they're playing, I did a review of it, another video, and they're playing this really like cool music, boom, 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 and he's like flipping the tables, and he looks kind of like a Marvel superhero, you know, it looks like a ball, and he's coming in, and he's getting rid of all these, this corruption, and it was like cool to watch and fun to watch. What's kind of interesting is in the actual episode, that scene doesn't really feel that way. There's not that music playing. And in fact, you kind of hear some of the apostles talking to some of the money changers in another scene. And it's a guy who, it seems like they're really overcharging for some of the exchange rates and stuff for the sacrifices. They've kind of monetized some of the spiritual life, which is part of the problem. But it does kind of reveal that it seems like some of the money changers, they're just kind of trying to support their families. This is just part of how they make their living. They're just there to kind of do their job. And so with that as a backdrop, it's almost uncomfortable, if I can say, to watch this portrayal of Jesus flipping people's tables and breaking their tables apart. And it seems like some of the people, they don't understand what they were doing. They're confused by it. Their stuff is being damaged. You know, this is their job. This is their livelihood. And this man, Jesus, is coming in and kind of throwing everything around. And you can tell it's kind of difficult for the people. But my reflection on that, again, we don't know exactly what it looked like. Scripture gives us, you know, sort of a depiction. And clearly what Jesus doing is the right thing. But what the nature of that maybe looked like, you know, is up to some interpretation. But one thing I appreciate about this interpretation is that I think it makes the point that a lot of times people can get caught up in sin without knowing the full gravity of it, but the sin still needs to be purified. People can get caught up in sin, not really know why it's so bad, but the sin still needs to stop. I think in our culture right now, you see a lot of people who are being swayed by some of these different anti-Christian ideologies. And a lot of these people don't have all the right information. Sadly, they've been very much corrupted and confused by the culture. And so they're not completely culpable for it. And yet the sin is still bad for them. And the sin still needs to stop. And the cutting off of sin can be a difficult, painful thing. All the money changers didn't actually know maybe the full gravity of what they were doing, but it was still so wrong that the temple had become a marketplace. And Jesus says it needs to stop. Because ultimately sin is sin because it's bad for us. It's bad for us individually, it's bad for our families, it's bad for our society. And so the process of cutting off sin is often a difficult, messy one, like the purifying of the temple is. And so we as Christians obviously are trying to do that in the best way for people to receive it. But the work of salvation is a messy business. It is a difficult thing. So those are my thoughts. If you've seen The Chosen, those first 3 episodes, or the next ones will come out in a couple weeks, please let me know what you guys think about it. Let me know what you think about any of this stuff. I would love to hear from you. Let me know if you're still liking kind of the longer episodes, diving into some of these topics. And if you're interested in the previous one we did, check out this video here. And we'll see you guys next time. God bless.